right, we are ready to start. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another online event, which is organized by the Martin Center, and in this case, our Greek partners, the Konstantinos Karamanlis Institute for Democracy. I am Anna Nalivaiko. I am Project Officer at Martin Center, and I will be moderating today's discussion, where we are going to talk about the impact that COVID-19 had on education and the future of education system. I am extremely honored to have exceptional speakers today, and I will start with introducing Maria Gabriel, who of course does not need an introduction, who is EU Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth. Welcome, Commissioner. Thank you so much for being here with us. Then we have the Deputy Minister of Education and Religious Affairs of Greece, Sofia Zakaraki. Welcome, Deputy Minister, as well. And last but not least, of course, Professor of Contemporary History and Director of the School of Government of Louis University in Rome, Giovanni Orsina. Thank you so much, and welcome to all the speakers. And thank you again for being with us and for sharing, being willing to share your experience and your knowledge. I'd like also to welcome all of our online viewers, and on a technical note, I'd like to inform you that the discussion will last for 1 hour, but due to a very busy schedule, the Commissioner will stay with us only for the first half an hour. Having said that, we would like still to give you, to our viewers, the opportunity to ask the Commissioner some questions. So after going into the first round of questions with our panelists, we will take 1 or 2 questions from the audience to the Commissioner. So please free to leave any questions that you wish for the Commissioner in the comment section on the live stream. And with regards to the other speakers, we will leave at the end of the discussion some moments to take your questions as well that you can leave in the comment section. So I will not take away further time. I'm just going to very briefly introduce the topic that we're going to discuss and give some background information to what led us to discuss indeed this topic today. Of course, COVID-19 had an unprecedented impact on education and continuation of learning. We have seen schools all over the world and all over Europe closing, and an interruption of the learning experience. As a result, the member states and schools and education and universities, they have tried to assure the education through technology that was at their disposal. This technology, of course, did not come without challenges, because, of course, to have this learning experience, there has to be access to digital devices, to good internet connection, to parent support, and the teachers and the professors have to be literate in the digital technology. So, Commissioner, I'd like to ask you the following. Education is, of course, a competence of the member states, but can you tell us what steps the EU has taken in order to support the member states and the education institutions to provide the continuation of learning experience? And also, you're leading the Commission's work on the European education area. Can you tell us more what this is about, and if COVID-19 had any impact on it, and what is the current state of play? So, Commissioner, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, and thank you very much to the entire team for organizing these debates. Yes, you said it very clearly, this is an unprecedented situation, but again, people in the education field has shown us how extraordinary is their dedication, creativity, and motivation. That's why I would like to start by saying again, thank you very much to all the teachers, pupils, institutions, because definitely during this crisis, we all have seen how important are digital skills, new technologies, and what we can do better. And you said it, Anna, yes, this is a competence for member states, but we as a European Commission, we have an important role to play, especially when the time is coming for communication, for exchanging best practices and using good examples. That's why allow me here to underline 2 main topics. First of all, immediately with the start of this crisis, we launched a web page gathering online materials. That means that all our teachers, educators, they can have access to free online courses, tutorials, and teaching materials. That was quite impressive, the mobilization of our eTwinning platform. I'm very proud of them because what we have seen that teachers and schools are very much mobilized in order to provide as much as possible methodologies and quality content to those that need this. Third, we have our school education gateway. It's a website that provides a collection of articles and resources open to all. Definitely, we need to continue on this. And allow me just to remind that the 6th of April, the Gateway published an overview of member states' website for online materials, online school education. And now we are adding tutorials and webinars on online teaching. I think that definitely here we need to continue to promote this. At the same time, as at the beginning, we as a European Commission, we make this at the disposal of our member states a horizontal initiative that was the Corona Response Investment Initiative. And we really allowed our member states to use a complete flexibility in order to use unspent structural fund for distance learning. And now what is very encouraging for me is that since more than 1 month, we launched a platform where member states can use these examples, can exchange good practices, and I hope that the biggest part of them, definitely they will use this possibility. Next week, I have another video conference with the Ministers of Education. And I think that it will be a good occasion to have a clear state of play, how they manage to use this horizontal initiative, but on the other side, to stay very open to innovation and to learn from each other. Another important aspect is, of course, it's our Erasmus Plus students. You know how this program is a symbol for all of us. Now, what I would like to say, that we are in a regular contact with national agencies and we allow them to apply the force majeure clauses. And if the numbers are correct, now we don't have so much cases where our students are not in safe situation or they face problems. In any case, I would like just to plead here, please continue to provide us examples and don't hesitate really to share with us this information, because actually we know that 70% of our students with long-term mobility canceled their mobility, but 30% continued with a successful online learning and distance learning. And the numbers are a little bit different when we talk about short-term mobility. It's 60% cancel the mobility and 40% continue. Of course, numbers are quite living thing, so we'll continue to receive some more information from the national agencies. Now, what's about the European education area? Thank you very much for raising this issue, because I think that we have here a unique opportunity to show some lessons learned during the crisis. And that will be at least my ambition with the European education area, to show clearly that what we would like to do in this field of education is in order to equip our citizens with the necessary skills and competencies to succeed. And the other thing, to be very clear, no one should be left behind, because this crisis has shown that there is some common challenges between our member states. We need to continue to work on connectivity, especially for rural areas, remote areas. We need to continue to work on equipment. We have children without tablets, without the possibility to join this process. And that's why in this framework of the European education area, I will pay special attention to some of the initiatives. First, and that will be something very soon that will come, it's our Digital Education Action Plan. We'll build on the success of the previous one. We'll continue definitely with some of the most successful initiatives like European Code Week or Safer Internet for EU. And this crisis has shown how important is media literacy and critical thinking, and to tackle the disinformation with a very, very young pupils. And in this Digital Education Action Plan, I will put an accent on connectivity, on artificial intelligence, but definitely what is important for me is here to be sure that this time digital learning is a reality for all. And there will be a lot of initiatives. Second thing, when we talk about no one should be left behind, let's be very realistic. Even now, we have educational poverty within the European Union, and that will be quite important to better support pupils from a disadvantaged background. That's why we would like to propose a new initiative that will be the School Success for All, and we would like to insist on basic competencies, because when every year when we receive the results of PISA report, it's not so encouraging, and definitely we need now to use the lessons learned from this crisis to see what are the positive things of new technologies, but at the same time to continue and to support some of our traditions in the education systems. And I think that here we need to find the complementarity, the balance, because nothing can replace the teacher, nothing can replace the people-to-people contact, this social and emotional link, and we need to continue to work on this. Third point, European Teachers Academies. I think that it will be a very, very interesting initiative, especially because now with the crisis, we have seen that the biggest part of our teachers are confident in their way to do with new technologies, but we have teachers that they need to have access to more trainings, to have access to online platforms with quality content. And that's why what I would like to propose now, that teachers are working together in order to elaborate together these materials and after to give access to them to the others. And final point that will be our maybe one of the biggest initiatives is the Universities of the Future. Of course, it's the European Universities Alliances. Remember, that's a very, very strong initiative, especially because now we already have the first 17 alliances. They are working together, because here we would like to promote the challenge-based approach to see how universities, but together with industry, with innovators, with civil society, they can work together in order to present to us something very clear about the universities of the future. Actually, we are evaluating the second group of universities. We received more than 60 applications, but by the end of this year, 2020, we expect that there will be 41 European University Alliances. So you can see what we would like now to promote is really on one side to take the benefits of new technologies, but to stay with a human-centered approach, to promote some of our strengths, and at the same time to invest massively now in education in order to prepare our people to have the right skills for these new realities. Digitalization is here, climate change will continue to be an objective for all of us. If you'd like to have a society which is resilient, and if you'd like to have an economy that gives perspectives to our young people to choose Europe, we need now to invest in the education, in research and innovation, and that will be my message for the recovery plan, for example. So I hope that there will be a lot of member states that will support this.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I think you covered so much ground and gave so much input for us to continue the discussion. And in fact, one of the things you said, which is crucial here, is I think the exchange of experience and best practices. I think this is really, really important within the union to really share this experience and expertise and practices that some countries have with other countries. And on that note, I'd like to address the Deputy Minister Zakaraki and ask you, we have seen in different countries, many tools that were used to continue the teaching, such as online platforms, social media in some cases, even TV programs and radio broadcasts. So can you tell us how did Greece tackle the closure of schools and what tools Greek schools and university used? And maybe if you can give us an insight into the digital literacy among teachers and students in your country.
Dear Anna, thank you very much. And Martin Center, Kanamanlis Institute, again, thank you for this unique opportunity to address such a hotly debated issue. Dear Commissioner, dear Professor, it is truly an honor to be here with you, and of course, the numerous viewers who are now online streaming and watching this conversation, which, as I said just prior to that is a debate which is happening all over the world. And of course, in countries where the schools had to close down, and they had to close due to coronavirus, which was an unprecedented crisis. Nobody expected that 2 months ago our schools would close down, and nobody expected that our systems would have to be mobilized in a way, and despite the bureaucracy and red tape, mobilized in a way that we would give very rapid responses. And I think that this is the key element, the rapid response to this new situation. Of course, as I said, unprecedented crisis. Unprecedented crisis means that we also had to think creatively because the situation was there. The literacy, the digital literacy was there. The lack of equipment was there. So we had to act swiftly. Let me give you just some rough numbers of where we started and where we actually headed. And that all in no more than 20 days. We used digital platforms. We used digital education platforms that were already in place. But imagine, if you can imagine the number, up until the 10th of March, only 10,000 students had a personal account in these digital platforms. In only 10 days' time, 1 million students entered and actually accessed the digital education platforms. And the number of the teachers is equally impressive. Prior to that, it was about 100,000 teachers that owned an account, and now more than 200,000 teachers own an account. And I mean public schools, private schools, and we also address the university closures, but turning into an online courses, which is now has reached more than 95% attendance. And it was easier for students, university students, because they were more accustomed to this kind of learning. So if I had to compare primary, secondary education, that is my competence, and tertiary education, I would say that the tertiary students, that the university students were readier, let's say, were were ready to accept this challenge. Now, the numbers were very impressive. Was the actual involvement in everyday online courses as impressive? That was a struggle. And I can tell you it was a struggle also to network failure, because you understand that all networks were burdened. We turned to teleworking as we turned to teleeducation. So the challenges were there. We had to meet them. The schools chose to either address the children in an online course by using a platform that was offered by the Greek education system, by the Greek Ministry of Education, or either use the other platforms that were non-synchronized. That means that the teachers prepared online material and then it was sent over to the students. I would say, if I had to give a rough estimate, that about 70% of the school population, I mean teachers and students, were offered this opportunity and they were able to exploit it. But as I said before, the challenges were there, and it was also about the equipment. We all come to realize that, of course, no single school in Greece was able to offer a laptop or a tablet to each teacher. And of course, not every household, Greek household, offered one tablet or two tablets, or at the same time, when you have 2 children or 3 children, be able to meet the challenge of having them all online at the same time. So you understand that it was, after a while, it was also a family struggle to be able to access your laptop or your tablet and be able to be educated online with your teacher. So, number one, lack of equipment. Number two, lack of training, because we asked our teachers who were so eagerly able to turn the physical education, which cannot be substituted, the physical education that we have inside the physical classroom, into online learning, but the majority of them were not trained. So, dear Commissioner, I think that this will be a common challenge to be able to channel funds through our programs and be able to train our teachers into the digital competences that we need in order to better access and better exploit the online courses And not only the instruments, but I also talk about the materialization of online learning material. It's a totally different approach to teach inside your classroom and prepare material, and it's a whole different ballgame when you prepare material in order to be used for online learning. So, challenge, but also a great opportunity for us to meet is train our teachers. The Greek University, the Greek Ministry of Education is already planning a very widespread teacher training system for online courses, as well as being able, as I said, to materialize education material that can be used for online learning. This will start September on, and it has already started with 15 hours of online learning, but this will be widely adapted to all kinds of schools all around Greece, September on. Now, our challenge was also to be able to access children that, as I said, lacked equipment. What we did was at the same time to exploit donations that were generously given by private donors, also as entities here in Greece, and at the same time be able to channel European money by offering tablets for school units, about 4 or 5 tablets for school units that could also be used for online learning, online teaching. I think that the challenges were common in most member states, dear Commissioner. I'm sure that you have been already informed through the platforms and also through communication with every member state that more or less all of us had to deal with the same challenges. And now we deal with the following challenge, that is to return to schools. To return to schools, but also offer opportunities for students that have to stay at home due to disease, due to the fact that they belong to a fragile, let's say, health-wise category of citizens, which means that the children have to stay at home, even if their schools have already reopened. And we're trying to find creative and useful ways in order for these children to receive material, either through platforms that can be used online, or, as I said, be offered the opportunity to be sent material through email or through our digital education platforms. So no child left behind is, as I said, the norm in this approach that we have to employ all around Europe. How we can make this happen is by, first of all, assessing how this process developed these past 2 months, assessing the education impact that it had on children, assessing it through our relevant services, and be able to plan better for September in order to take advantage of all the lessons learned and be able to meet the challenges of equipment, teacher training, and student training, the people and the factors that made this all happen, and they made this a reality. And it was the teachers who put up the struggle, and it was the students themselves and their parents that were able at the same time to meet the challenges of online learning at home. Anna, maybe the professor can continue so we can give more time also for the commissioner to answer questions, since he has this time limitation.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. In fact, the commissioner will have to leave very soon. And before turning to the professor, we have a very interesting question from an online viewer to the commissioner. So maybe you can take this one right before leaving. And it states, currently many researchers and students are struggling to access materials because of copyright restrictions, which do not accommodate online or distance learning. And this is a major problem for digital learning. How can the European Commission help?
2 things. First of all, we need now to see the new copyright directive implemented by member states, because allow me to remind you that in the new text there is exceptions, especially when we talk about research, when we talk about education, when we talk about libraries. So my plea here is only for member states, please do it, because our talents have a real need here. Second, when we talk about research, I'm very glad that now for the new Horizon Europe, the open access, open science will be the modus operandi. What we already have done during the last 3 months. First, for all our projects that were selected under the emergency calls for research of vaccines, treatments, or diagnostic tests, we have a huge obligation. It's really to deliver and to share results until 30 days after the publication. Second, very soon with Ministers of Research, we adopted ERA versus Corona Action Plan, European Research Area versus Corona. And one of the first actions, only 2 weeks after the adoption, it was to launch a European data platform where researchers can exchange, can have access to results of preclinical, clinical trial studies. That's now done, it's operational, so I can only invite people that are interested in this to go to the platform and to make the best use of this, especially because it allows researchers that are not selected in ongoing projects to build networks, to use know-how, and to share experiences. I think that was a very clear signal during this crisis, how important is the cooperation, the coordination, and that path now by open access and open science. I can only encourage people to raise their voices with ours, because as I already said it, that will be the new modus operandi in Horizon Europe program.
Thank you, Commissioner. Then maybe just before you have to leave us in these 2 minutes, Professor Orsina, which was also my question, would you also maybe comment on the fact that what both the Commissioner and the Deputy Minister said, that technology cannot substitute the contact of a professor with a student. In your own experience as a professor, what is your point of view on that?
Never new technologies can replace this. I think that every one of us knows what that means, because what we are as a person is thanks to our family, of course, but thanks to our teachers. We are passing more time with our teachers than sometimes with our parents, let's be very honest. And teachers have a crucial role to play in our way to see the world, in our way to be confident in our capacities, to be creative. And that's why, for me, now one of the main lessons learned from this crisis is that now our task is to find the right balance. Definitely new technologies that mean acting swiftly, but teachers, emotional links, people-to-people contact, that means to use our capacities for more targeted actions. So that's for me digitalization and education. Act swiftly with targeted measures, and that's why we need human beings, we need teachers, we need pupils, we need parents, we need all the people that are making our institutions efficient, and that will be my approach for the next Digital Education Action Plan.
And Professor Orsina, would you agree to that?
Well, no, I totally agree to that. I mean, I spent the last 2 months organizing online teaching and teaching online. And of course, as an emergency situation, answer that was brilliant. And it allowed us to go on, my university and many universities across Italy to go on. And it's a possible substitute in an emergency. But then, the university is a community. We must decide whether university is a place where we get the technical information or where we get values, a mentality, a tradition, a way of thinking. Now, if that is a university, and if also in the future and in the global communication society, the university must remain a community where a culture is being taught, then we need physical contact. We need teachers and professors and students to have dinner together, to have lunch together, to meet at the canteen, to meet in the libraries, to spend time together. We need kids to stay together, because we all know that in a university you learn from your peers, possibly even more than you learn from your teachers, and you discuss what your teachers tell you, and that's how you grow. So if that is something that this society and this civilization will need also in the future, and I'm partial, of course, I'm an historian, so I think it will, then absolutely we need to go on teaching physically and having the old style university of teachers and pupils. That being said, technology can help a lot. Can help in lifelong learning, can help in executive teaching, can help in complementing the physical in-presence teaching. So I think it can be very interesting and important. It can never substitute, and I think we should fight to keep the presence teaching as the core of our university experiences.
Thank you, Professor. And Commissioner Gabriel, I know that you have to leave now because of your schedule, and I'd like to thank you so much for being here with us and for sharing your point of view and for providing so much information also to all online viewers and everyone involved. So thank you once again, and thank you for the work you're doing in the Commission.
Thank you,
Thank you very much, Anna. I leave you in good hands with the Deputy Minister. We know each other. Professor, thank you very much for your very encouraging messages. So have a very, very fruitful debate. It was a great pleasure for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. In the meanwhile, we will carry on the discussion. There were already so many things that were mentioned and on the table, and many things that you already started to tackle. But Deputy Minister, maybe I would like to explore with you a bit more the reform or rethinking of the education sector. Definitely, coronavirus brought us a disruption that, as you mentioned, nobody was ready for, and member states had to really move quickly to adapt to it, and many challenges were met. And I'm sure not just in Greece, just in general, in all the countries, like the lack of tablets, of laptops, of a good internet connection, of even parent support, because the kids who are at home, they need also the younger ones, especially parents, to supervise them in their classes, in their teaching and training for teachers as well. But do you think that this unique situation can also give us the opportunity to rethink then the education sector, to embed technology also in the future of education? And are there any talks maybe or any ideas on the table in your own government about that?
Anna, thank you very much for the question, and thank you, Professor, because you made it very clear that physical presence, whether it is in the amphitheater, whether it is in a classroom of 15 to 20 or 25 people, it cannot be substituted, let's say, but something which is very useful, very adaptable to the current challenges, and of course the challenge of ongoing, let's say, technological progress. But still, this magical thing that is happening when you're able to address also in a verbal and a non-verbal way your student is something really important. Anna, you mentioned about the opportunities that we can exploit in order to adapt the lessons learned into probably some decisions that we can take in the midterm and the long-term decisions that we take about the education system. I can give you very concrete examples of how the Greek Minister of Education is planning to incorporate the lessons, and I would say that would happen even if coronavirus hadn't, let's say, landed in our lives. Here we're talking about a different, let's say, approach to learning. Greece has always been, and the Greek education system had always been more teacher-centered. So I would say that with the new challenges and also with the new approach that we want to undertake, we would like to give the children the opportunity to act, react, work together, and be able to think outside the box. This cannot happen in a magical way. This cannot happen from one minute to the other. So that's why we're trying September on to redesign the curricula on a pilot basis in about 300 schools, primary and secondary education, all around Greece, where we're going to design the curriculum by inserting new approaches. Let's say children will be learning about emotional intelligence, will be learning about environmental protection. They will be learning about robotics. They will be doing lessons about sex education. We will try, let's say, to provide the children with more motives and motivation in order to better address of what is happening outside school. And this, alongside technology and alongside online learning, they can be able to better use and exploit online material that is out there, of course, always filtered by experts and always filtered by the teachers themselves, who will then use it in classroom. So it is an initiative that would happen even if coronavirus hadn't come into our lives, but still it definitely aligns with this adaptability that we now use to mobilize us concerning the coronavirus. Again, as you mentioned technology, of course, we want to add more hours in the curricula that we're going to design and be able to put in place 2 years from now into information technology and computer studies. And this will, of course, help the computer literacy of the students. And as I said prior to the previous speeches, we are going to help the teachers be trained for online learning as well as online material. So I think, Anna, a combination of initiatives, whether that has to do with the curricula, this has to do with new books, and at the same time, intensive teacher training, this will be able to help us move in the right direction, turning the crisis into an opportunity.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I think you mentioned the key word here, which is adaptability. And this leads me to my question that I have to Professor Orsina. You have firsthand experience with all these tools that we are talking about, the e-platforms, and I guess several others. You as a university professor definitely have had to adapt to this new teaching method. So can you maybe just walk us through how did your university, so the Lewis University, adapted to this to ensure the continuation of learning, and what tools have you had and have until now to provide lectures to your students?
Yeah, well, first of all, my university, Lewis, is a small and specialized university because it's just a social science university. So it had the possibility, the opportunity to adapt quite fast, because the dimensions make it rather fast and adaptable and flexible. So actually, when the lockdown happened in Italy, we adapted very, very fast. Really, overnight, we moved everything online. We have been lecturing online. We had Viva commissions online. We had exams online. So we were able to move everything. Of course, on the basis of a previous use of the new technologies to share material, to organize the classes, to communicate with the students. So we have been using these technologies for some time, but never actually for this kind of activities. So we had a kind of a story. We had been discussing about moving part of the teaching online for many years, but then the crisis has actually imposed a dramatic acceleration on all that. The instruments, I mean, one of the major instruments is actually the instrument we are using now. This is a Cisco WebEx. This is not a platform that is meant for teaching. This is a platform that is meant for conferences, but this is what we had at our disposal 2 months ago, and so we went immediately on Cisco. And as I was saying before, this was very good for the emergency, and this allowed us to go on teaching and to go on business as usual and life as usual, and that was very important. But this has remained an emergency situation, an emergency solution. One of the reasons also is that we actually moved online teaching that was meant to be done in presence. So of course, teachers didn't have the time to adapt the syllabi, to adapt the way of teaching, to reschedule their lectures, to change their methods. 1 week we were teaching live, next week we were teaching online. So it was the live teaching moved online. Now, this doesn't work. And this can be an emergency solution, but cannot work. Online teaching is something totally different, must be thought, imagined and planned to be online. Otherwise it is complicated, and otherwise, basically you end up lecturing for 2 hours as you would do in a normal classroom, but the attention span online, of course, is not the same that you have when you are in presence. And webinars are 1 hour, and this is a very clever and proper choice, exactly because there is an attention span. This is one of the issues. The other issues is, of course, numbers. When you have a very large class, by very large in my university, I mean 100 people, 120 people, online, this tends to become complicated. To spare on the band, you need to switch down all the cameras. This means the teacher is not seeing the pupils. As a matter of fact, we do not know whether the pupils are paying attention, are in front of the computers. So with big numbers, things become more complicated. With small numbers, it is much better. 10, 15, 20 people, it can work much better also online. So bottom line, I would say, again, as an emergency, we could go on without losing too much. If we want to transform this into a proper system, we must deeply rethink the way in which we teach, because that must be done in a very different way. And of course, I stick to what I was saying before, that I don't think that an online university, or mostly online university, is the same as a university in presence. Online teaching is very good for grown-up pupils, students, for continuous education, for executive education, for people who already have a very strong cultural and existential background. In that case, it can work. But if you have to form pupils that are 19, 20, 21, you need to have them in front of you. And as I said before, you need to build a community with them.
Anna, can I comment on, because the professor really gives me some food for thought and immediate reaction, especially when it has to do, when he mentioned the large digital classroom. Of course, when you have primary or secondary school classrooms, you have a more limited number. At the same time, the level of immaturity, you understand, and the age plays this important role. And then it is the parent at home, when at home, of course, when you have the opportunity, or any guardian at home, that then plays the multiple role of either teleworking or helping the children to either access the online course. We also use the Cisco platform here in Greece. It was offered for free to all schools around Greece by the Greek Ministry of Education. But then again, all the other digital skills and the digital tools also, offered, they pose the same challenge. Having the child, let's say, to either stand in front of the computer, be able to comply to these new rules, which was definitely a challenge. And Anna, I think that in our discussion, which has covered a lot of angles, we shouldn't forget the word equality and inequality. It is of extreme importance that in the years to come, and let's hope that this coronavirus epidemic really is something that we will forget very soon. But we mustn't let this epidemic or the outbreak widen the gap, widen the digital gap, and the opportunities that have to be offered to every child. No child must be left behind, and no child must be shut out. I know that this is more, to some people that might think that this is a wishful thinking. No, it shouldn't be. It should be, as I said, here is a unique opportunity, time-wise and situation-wise, to better assess what are these inequalities that we now have in all member states, within a member state, and comparing member state to member state, and trying to address that. Of course, the immediate focus is on technology and tools, but then again, the most compelling quality is human compassion. So at the same time, we have different angles that we have to think. We have to think about how children now react, and teachers now, to this online education, then meeting the challenge of not widening, but at the same time narrowing the education gap, and never forgetting about the human compassion and the human presence. And this, as the professor said and the commissioner said, this unique element that is happening within the physical education, the physical presence in classroom.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I think we have a few minutes now before the end to take some questions from our online viewers that are coming in. So we have actually a question for you, Deputy Minister. What do you expect from the MFF and the Recovery Fund in terms of funding digital education in member states?
I expect, first of all, that during the design of the programs that we talk about the equipment, that we talk about better equipping schools in a regional and central periphery in order to be able to meet challenges. And of course, at the same time, as I said before, to be able to address also the digital gap, and this will also happen with teacher training, with the exploitation of tools, as it has to do with accreditation of students' skills when we talk about computer science and computer use. So the digital skills accreditation also channeled through the design of tools through the new MFF. So equipment, teacher training, and then through that we can be able to also redesign curricula in all member states in order to meet the challenges of tomorrow.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. We have a more broad question that maybe Professor Rosina, you would like to tackle. So it says, would you consider, so could it be a possibility for partnerships between schools and non-formal education NGOs, for example, using the activities like camps or outdoor education or not specifically lectures to support the progress learning and maybe catch up in a way some activities during the summer? So in other terms, could this experience of partnership between universities, schools and education institutions and non-education institutions be beneficial to cover ground that was lost during the interruption of coronavirus?
The general answer is yes. I think this is something we have been reflecting about. That, as a matter of fact, the new technologies, communication technologies, can help put the educational institutions in touch with professional expertise. Of course, this can be much easier because you must not have people that travel. You can have guests. So all the, let's say, complement to ordinary academic teaching can actually be done easily with these technologies. And in a way, this is a bit what we, one of the, I think, the most interesting things we have learned thanks to this crisis, which is that for seminars, webinars, for having international connections, this can work very well, and you don't lose very much. I mean, of course, if you go to a congress, to a seminar, you meet people, you eat a sandwich together, you have dinner together. That is very important, and that should not be lost. But sometimes it can be very useful, far more handy, far easier to organize something like this. And with this, you can really have an international community. It's very easy, and you can bring this to the students. And to have that kind of connection between professionals and students. I'm not so sure this can be a substitution for a summer experience. I don't know whether the person who was asking the question was thinking about an internship or whatever. You know, in that case, for students, for thinking, of course, about university, but also high school students, it's very important to go in a place, to breathe the air of a place where people are working. That is so important for students. They don't know what working means. So it's very important. You go into an office, you meet people, you breathe the air, you understand the logic, you understand what it means to work. And again, this is something you can do physically in presence. You cannot do thanks to any communication technology. So in general, yes, I'm not so sure this can be a good substitute for any summertime experiential connection between professionals and students.
Anna, can I add something to that? You mentioned you mentioned before the cooperation, and you mentioned again, of course, the professor made mention to that. I wanted to add the word research. When we talk about designing what will happen in the next program period, research, I think, is a key word. So when it comes for a lot of member states and European partnerships and missions to take place, research is going to be, I think, a key factor, which addresses at the same time a lot of things that we now discuss. It also addresses, of course, the hygienic part, the part of the health sector, and at the same time increasing the partnership and cooperation options and missions and international cooperation, and at the same time helping out through the outcomes that we have also the school system by as I said before, directed into a future that offers opportunities to all.
Thank you. I think I had a connection problem for a second there, but thank you, Sophia, for your intervention. I actually have another question for you, which says you pointed out the private sector supported the digital transformation of educational system. How did it happen, and can we draw a conclusion about the cooperation of private and public sector in education?
Yes. Well, we saw this happening, first of all, and as I said, in the platform, the actual platform that we also now use, the Cisco WebEx platform that was offered and given to all students and all teachers, and they were able to employ, to use, so that they can have the online learning. So apart from the existing public digital education platforms that were in place for many years in Greece, but not widely known, Anna. So it was also an opportunity for the wider audience to know that the Greek education system and the Greek Ministry of Education offered online platforms. People used to know them before through e-twinning, the people that already used online instruments. So in order to go back to your question, yes, we had, of course, the cooperation of companies like Cisco, which offered the platform, and at the same time we had private companies and other entities that offered a lot of tablets and a lot of equipment for schools to use. So I would say that there is space for cooperation and there is space for creative, let's say, cooperation. Let me give you one single example. For about a month ago, we decided to pair up and cooperate with a group of enthusiasts, a group of young people who offer an online tool called Tipping Point. Tipping Point is a professional guidance tool, and professional guidance and orientation is something that is very crucial, especially at the ages of, let's say, 12 to 15. So we were able to offer this through the cooperation with this entity to all vocational high school students. And I think this was also a gain, a real gain, that we also learned to cooperate, taking the best out of these cooperations and be able to apply best practices also in public schools.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Deputy Minister. And Professor Orsina, maybe I will have one last question for you before we wrap up. It asks, in what ways do you think the EU will manage to preserve the real core of humanitarian values in our education system in the years to come?
That is a very broad question, and no, my general remark as a humanist, I mean, I take that the question is about humanist values. Humanitarian, of course, is something slightly different. As a person, as an historian, so a person is thinks of himself as a humanist. It is not very easy to safeguard humanistic values in a globalizing world. This is because humanistic values tend to, let's say, grow inside a tradition. They don't tend to be universalistic, even though they can be universalized, and they tend to believe in the dialogue between different ways of looking at the world. But there is an idea that experiences are its history, its philosophy, its traditions of thought, it's all stuff that was born inside a specific time and place, and then of course has the ability to grow out of the time and place, to enter into a very broad dialogue, but keeps its identity. And the key word here is an identity that is opposed to others. This is not an aggressive identity, but nonetheless, it is an identity. And so this is, in a globalizing world, this becomes difficult, and the globalizing world, of course, tends to promote kinds of knowledge that are universalistic, which is scientific knowledge of the hard sciences and also the soft sciences, rather than knowledge that tends to be time and place specific, at least in its origins. So what I believe is that Europe should make a very deep reflection on this and to try and give more, I think, space and more importance to the preservation of its own identity, which of course, being the European identity, is very diverse, is very plural, but nonetheless has its own core, because this is what would keep the uniqueness of the European experience. I think this is something that should be done also in the programs of the EU. I understand the trend towards, giving more importance to the hard sciences. I totally understand the competition in our sciences and technologies. I'm afraid that in that case, we would have very big instruments, but not very big brains to use the instruments. And that's not good. We should work on the instruments, but also work on the humans that are behind the instruments.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor. I think it was a beautiful ending to our discussion. I think it's time to wrap up. And what I'd like our viewers to take away from this, we covered so much ground in 1 hour. I think we really went in all aspects of what education looks like today. But I think what came out of this is definitely technology is a very useful tool that we can use, and is very useful to in the emergency, but also to be embedded in the future of our education system. However, nothing really can replace the contact of the teacher and with the students, and that is really needed not only for lecturing purposes, but really to establish that networking and connection, which goes so much beyond than just transmitted knowledge. And one other aspect that was really tackled here was equality. So really ensure equality and access to everyone, to education, to digital tools in the future, if this is the direction we are going to. And this is really, really, really important to really include everyone in the system. I think on this note, I'd like to thank the panelists. Thank you so much for taking the time, for being here with us. I'd like to thank the online viewers. I'd like to thank our partner in organizing this event, the Konstantinos Karamanlis Institute for Democracy. This event was in the framework of the Martin Center campaign, Stay Home and Stay Informed, where we bring you many products on our social media and online and on our website, our publications, our papers, and our events about what's going on in the world right now. So keep following us, and thanks again to the speakers, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Professor.